Hi guys, I'm back. After several months of being lost in the graduate school sauce, I am now back with a bunch of new books that I want to just point out, you know what I'm saying? And I have some really good reads that I finished here and there that I think are totally worth your time. And, you know, just adding on to the NYRB collection as usual because that's my favorite consumerist trend. I'm so sorry. Um, so, anyways, starting off, all of these books you see over here, or these, a lot of these I got at my local bookstore, yes, but also there was a huge book sale here in PA, so I went, copped a couple of things. I'm gonna show those, and then of course I have my NYRB new additions to the club, if you will, and then of course I'm gonna talk about some of my finished reads, some of my current reads, what do I think, all that good jazz. So, starting off with the NYRB collection, because you guys know how I feel about that. Let's see here. So I have one, two, three, four. One, two, three, four. Okay, so I have eight now, or eight new ones. So we're just gonna go one by one and point them out to you. So I'm going to start with the ones that I've actually finished, um, so I can say a little something about that. So John Williams is the GOAT. I don't know if I've mentioned that in the last one, but I've decided that I'm going to read all of John Williams's work, which is only three novels. And so I finished two out of the three, and Butcher's Crossing is actually a western, which is really interesting. If it's a western, but it doesn't quite feel like the typical like western like your granddad is reading. Okay, like it's a little bit more literature esque. Like there's a little bit more of a like a flowy kind of style to it. It's not as action packed. Like it's not gonna be like you know just rowdy cowboys and like fighting. That's not what this is. This is kind of more of like a character study, kind of. Not similar to Stoner in the like just focus on one individual. There's a couple of characters in here too that I think are really interesting. But yeah, John Williams is an amazing writer, and of course this was a good read. And then everybody has been talking about this book by Juan Luis Burgess. Is that how you say it? It's very short. Like it's the shortest little thing. And maybe by everybody, maybe just me. Maybe just me. But this one's actually really interesting because it's very surrealist. It's very not grounded. Low key, I was reading it and I was kind of like, wait a minute, what's going on? But it's an extremely short read and it was really good. And of course, wait, no, it's not. It's not by him. It's by Adolfo Bioy Castells. I don't know why I said Jorge Luis Borges. That's who the prologue is by. My bad, guys. Can't read. I don't have my glasses on. Um, but this one was really short. It was really interesting. I wouldn't put it like in my top five or anything. Still a good read, nevertheless. Now, somebody who's actually been talked about to death is Eve Babbitt's, and she has several different books. I just read this one, Slow Days, Fast Company, The World, The Flesh, and LA. And this one's actually really interesting. I'm not really into, like biographies and like memoir kind of stuff. That's not really my jam. I don't read like Joe Didion and stuff. But this was actually really interesting. And I like the way that she wrote it. Um, and it kind of made me feel invested for a time that I was not a part of whatsoever. So I'll give her that much. I'll probably read another one by her. Like I said, I don't know if I'd put it like in my top five, top 10 or anything, but it was still a good read. And then one of the newest NYRB published books is Perfection by Vincenzo Latonico, I think. He's Italian, I believe. And this is also another really short read. Um, but it's super contemporary. I'm talking like the 2010s, like and the 2020s, like very contemporary. And it basically follows this millennial kind of couple who lives in Europe. But it's very on point. Like it's very interesting commentary. I know this one's also been popular and talked about quite a bit. And I actually liked it. I think this one was worth the hype in the sense that it's not gonna be, I would say, like groundbreaking necessarily, but I think it's worth the hype because it does such a good job on tapping on what is going on, yes, in the world, but like it's really like social media and like trying to present oneself as, I don't know, maybe virtue signaling is the word, but basically these millennial adults who are just trying to like figure out their life and their marriage and like come across as people who kind of like have their lives together. They're like both freelance like designers and artists too. So it's kind of relatable a little bit, but yeah, this one's definitely worth the hype, and I'm glad that they translated it to English so we can read it. So those are the four that I've finished from my new NYRB collection. And then I have the other four that I have not read. One of which or two, one or two that I've started. Because, like I said, I read a million things at once, of course. Um, but one of those is The Hearing Trumpet by Lenora Carrington. Um, I don't know anything about this writer, so I want to read it blind, so I haven't done any research. But it seems pretty interesting, so we'll see how that goes. And then Catalan Street. This is by Magda Zasbo. I gotta learn how to pronounce her last name, but she's an artist I would put like in my top favorites. She's excellent. She's an amazing writer, and I have another book by her in this stack too. Like I said, when I read The Door, amazing. One of the most beautiful books on the face of the earth. If you do not read The Door, I don't know what to tell you. Hold on, let me see if I can pull it out so you can see it. Yeah, The Door, amazing, fantastic book. Definitely one of my favorite books of all time, and I've never been so melancholy and sad after finishing a book, and I love that feeling. So of course I had to pick up the others. Um, so yeah, I know this is going to be a great read, and this is going to be an amazing read. And then the other book by her that I picked up is Abigail, and I also don't know anything about this one either. I think both of these are about younger girls. Uh, yeah, I think they have younger protagonists than like in The Door, who's like a grown woman. Um, but yeah, I know these are going to be amazing reads because she's an amazing author. I cannot overstate her writing enough. It's very beautiful, very um, detailed without boring you, and that's what I love about her stuff. And then, of course, because I'm John Williams maxing, I have Augustus by John Williams. And so this is his third novel that he wrote. So I need to finish this so I can say I've read all of his work. He also has a book of poetry as well. I haven't read that either, but I'm gonna get to that. But this one's actually really interesting. This one is recreates the Roman Empire from the death of Julius Caesar. Like that's kind of crazy. Like all of his books are very different. None of them are the same, like remotely. So I'm kind of intrigued to see how this one plays out. This one I've started reading, and it's just kind of like letters, like kind of told through um, different letters to different people, all that stuff. So I'm excited to see how this one plays out. So we'll put that on the list. So yeah, those are all of the other four that I picked up from the NYRB. And like I said, my favorite publishing house, they've never let me down. And I'm so excited to keep expanding on my collection because I have no self control. So now all of these two big stacks over here are just books I picked up over the last few months that I think are going to be really fascinating. I thought I also had another book too. I've also picked up some poetry and a play, but I'm not gonna really put those in here. One of them is Juana de la Cruz, and I actually read her work in high school, so it was really cool to see her like out in the wild. And I was like, I have to get this. And then I picked up The Marriage by Witold Gromovicwitz, something of that sort. So that seems really interesting. I also picked up a poetry collection by Ada Lemon, and it's called Lucky Wreck. very short, like this big. But I like her poems. They're not they're they're in depth. They have depth, but they're not kind of like very like long-winded, prosy, like I'm gonna use every big word of the book. They're kind of grounded in a realistic way that I like. So that one is really good. And then I also picked up some selected poems by W.H. Auden. So that's my current poetry updates. I should probably make a separate video concerning poetry because I don't necessarily love every single poem and every single volume of work. So I had to make a separate video talking about poetry. Um, Anyways, so back over here. I'm gonna start with two books that I picked up ages ago, but I finished them also ages ago, but I just haven't talked about them on here. So the first one is Keros by Ginny Erpenbeck. Now this one is super popular because it got the International Booker Award, just like Perfection. Yeah, so Perfection and Keros have the same award, which is pretty prestigious, actually. And this book is dense, I won't lie. And it's dense in the sense that I don't really know how to explain it. It's not necessarily like the writing. It's not exactly the plot. It maybe the plot, maybe the plot. I would say that there are some certain things and nuances about Germany and the surrounding areas that maybe I just don't understand. So sometimes it comes off a little hard to understand exactly what she's pointing to. But I think also the book is sort of an allegory. It's just an allegory that I don't understand. I just haven't done my research. But I kind of got that impression as I was reading this. But it's written very beautifully. And yes, it is about an age gap romance. I know that that's not everybody's jam, but it's not a love story. It's not a love novel. Like it's not like the book talk, like, oh, I saw him from across the room, and I just like that's not what this is. That's not what this is. I think this is meant to be a very nuanced tale about East Berlin and West Berlin and Germany and what was going on in these time periods before reunification and communism in Eastern Europe and the Eastern Bloc and all that. So that's not what this is. It's not a love story. It's very much a historical fiction novel. Um, but it did take me a little second to get through it in the sense that there were some parts I was like, okay, like let me go back maybe and like reread this just so I know exactly where we are in the timeline a little bit because it kind of does skip around a little bit. It's pretty linear, but not always. So I think that might kind of get you when you're reading this. But overall, I see why it won an award. Very gorgeous writing, like beautiful. And I think, like I said, there's a bigger allegory going on between these characters and some other characters, maybe that I feel like is there that I just don't know all the context to. So there's that. But if you're in the mood for some historical stuff, this is a good one. It does also reference, philosophies and composers and all that stuff, which I know. So it was kind of fun to be like, I know that name. So there's that one. Also, super popular. I'm just bringing all the popular books. Martyr is 110% worth the hype, and it's worth the hype because it's a story that I feel like hasn't been done recently. I would say, like, it's very much a plot twist story, and I'm sure everybody says that. And they're like, "This is a crazy plot twist." But the plot twist is kind of wild, and you could probably figure it out. But it doesn't make the reveal like any less kind of wild, honestly. And I really love the main character in this. I root for him. I root for him. I really do. And I don't know. It's very grounded. It's very contemporary without being like without making itself already dated. If you know what I mean. Like sometimes I don't want to read fiction books that are set in the contemporary era because it's like you. Like I don't want you to say iPhone in this book. Like why would you do that? Like don't say Instagram here. Like this is my book. Don't do that. Um, but this kind of does it in a way that's not icky. Like it doesn't give me the contemporary ick. Um, so yeah, great book, worth the hype. Interesting writing, interesting characters, interesting dialogue, interesting plot. Like it's good, and I see why it also won an award. Banger, absolute banger, and you should read it as well. And it also has really good queer representation in there too. I don't know if I've mentioned that, but banger. So those are the two that I copped a while ago, but I've just now finished. a few months ago, so totally read these. Now onto these big stacks. Um, let's see here. So maybe I should start with separating out. So a lot of what I picked up at this book sale that I mentioned earlier in the video is Russian literature. I don't know if I mentioned this in the last one, but I love Russian literature. It slaps. Is it some of the most dense stuff I've ever read in my life? Yes. Do you have to reread the character names like 20 times? Yes. But but the stories and the characters and the philosophies are so well done. I don't like top notch. Russian literature is up there. It never does me dirty ever. And they just write with a sense of sorrow and melancholy that I just don't think Western authors can do as easily. And a lot of these are set in the past or were written in the past, just straight up, so they were contemporary in their time, and now they're, you know, dated or whatever in a way. But yeah, so there's that. So maybe I'll kind of separate my Russian literature out from everything else. But current read. So like I said, I don't know if I've mentioned her in the last video, but Miko Kawakami, top author. One of my favorite authors of all time. Once I read Breast and Eggs, I was like, period, she's going in the top five and she's not leaving. I don't think she can produce a dud because I'm reading this right now. This is actually an interesting switch up. This is a thriller, a mystery kind of type a little bit, but it doesn't feel like it's not like a murder mystery, like keeping you on the edge of your seat. Like it's very much a story about a young girl, a young woman going through a particular era in her life, and it's set in the 1990s in Tokyo. Yeah, yeah, and it's thick. It's about the same length as Breast and Eggs, I think. Um, but it hasn't disappointed me thus far. I'm kind of like this far into it, so not quite halfway. I need to get on that. But she's an excellent writer. Excellent writer. I love her writing style. Um, yeah, it's very much kind of focused on one character and her life, but the other characters that are kind of like brought in through her perspective are also really fascinating. Um, and so I'm excited to finish this because I know it's going to be good. So this is and this one is actually like really new too. This one just dropped like not that long ago, and as soon as I saw it in my local bookstore, I was like, I'm gonna drop this $30 for you to come home with me so I can read this because she's my favorite. Definitely like in the top. So you should read this, and you should also read Breast and Eggs, and her other two books that I have not quite gotten around to because I read everything. Um, and then another book current reads. Um, this isn't like a modern Penguins classic. I'm starting to really enjoy the modern classics that Penguin publishes because they're really, really interesting. They're kind of as diverse, I would say, as NYRB, but I feel like it's a little bit harder to find this specific, type of covers and like publisher in the sense or publishing collection, I would say. But this one is Berlin Finale by Haynes Rain or something like that. Yeah. This one is really interesting because I don't really read a lot of historical fiction about World War II necessarily, because like every white guy is into World War II, so it's not really really my jam. But this one is actually kind of starting to turn out really interesting. And it kind of starts off with this deserted soldier who meets this bartender. So I'm excited to see where this goes. And of course, it's a thick book, so it's gonna take me a while to get through it. But yeah, it's kind of set in 1945, but like towards the end of the fall of the Nazi regime. So it's not like in the throes of the war. I think it's kind of as it starts to kind of crumble and the Nazis become defeated at like eventually. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of intrigued to see, like I said, how this one plays out. I like the writing, and the characters are quite amusing. So stay tuned. Let's see here. Goodness me, I don't have my glasses on. So maybe let me grab my non Russian literature and that'll make it easy. Okay, so I picked up this one from the sale as well. apparently it won a Nobel Peace Prize for literature. It's called A View with a Grain of Sand by Wisla Szyombrowska. I definitely butchered that. But this looks really interesting. I really like the cover. It's really pretty. I've never heard of this writer before. Clearly Eastern European. Yeah, translated from Polish, so I assume she's Polish. I have not read this yet. And like I said, I like to go into things pretty blind, so I haven't researched it or anything. But this looks promising. And then, oh wait, I've actually did start to read this. So this one's also in the Pulitzer Prize finalist. I don't know why I'm pulling all the books that won awards. Um, I just naturally have good taste, guys. This one's called In the Distance by Hernan Diaz, and it's actually a western. I don't know why I got randomly into westerns, but just roll with it. But this one's actually really interesting because it kind of is not the typical like western that focuses on like American white men. I think this is going to be more fascinating because it started out with an immigrant from is it Eastern Europe? Is it Eastern Europe? I think so. Yeah, I'm looking at the back here, and it's so funny because one of the reviews is like, "Yeah, this has John Williams' Butcher's Crossing vibes in it," and I'm like, "Yes, that's how I know it's gonna. That's how I know it's gonna be good." Um, but yeah, so I think it's kind of like a coming of age tale a little bit with Western elements and like being out in the plains and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited. I like the writing thus far. I'm only like a little tiny section into it. And this is very contemporary too. This one's published like very recently. So this one also looks promising. Let's see. And then the other non-Russian literature I have in my stack here is While We Were Dreaming by Clemens Meyer. I think it's Meyer. So let's see. I think this one is translated from German. Yeah. So basically, another German novel, but kind of a coming of age story about a group of boys. So I know this is one's gonna make me sad. I can already tell you if it's gonna be on some coming of age boy stuff like The Outsiders and all that jazz. Like, oh no, I'm gonna cry, probably at the end, and it's pretty hefty too. But I'm not familiar with this publishing house at all. But I've started to see them pop up in like different places that I frequent. So I might start looking into them. But yeah, I don't know, guys. I've just kind of been into reading a diverse range of stuff, and by diverse range I mean European literature. That's what I mean. Translated European literature. That's what I mean. Um, so on to my Russian collection. Boy, oh boy. So all of this is Russian literature. I don't know why I'm into it so much. I think like I said. I think it's just generally because they write depression, depressive topics in such a way that it is devastating. But also, I just love the classic literature books too. And a lot of those are Russian, and so I just like need to get through all of those. um, and Dostoevsky is like one of my favorite authors of all time. So I was like, oh, is this how all of you guys write? It's so let me get on that. Um, but yeah, so definitely I picked up a copy of Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Super famous. He's like an OG in the Russian literature game. Super thick. And I know that after I finish this thick ass book, I'm gonna also read War and Peace. I've read bits of War and Peace. I have not read all of War and Peace, but I will get there. We will get there, okay? And I'm not reading it because I want to be hashtag different, hashtag deep. Like I just want to know I just want to read War and Peace. It seems interesting. But Anna Karina, like I said, is a very famous book. It basically outlines an affair um, between several different people, whole thing. But I'm not gonna lie, the writing is actually really interesting. Like I said, Russian literature is always hard because all the character names, and it's just like, look, I'm gonna have to nickname you something else so I can keep up with you in this story. But it kind of goes back and forth between a couple different perspectives, and that's probably why this book is so thick. Um, but it's a classic. I gotta read it. You know how that goes. Um, then let's see who else. Who else? Oh, I also picked up a book on Tolstoy himself, on life, Leo Tolstoy, a critical edition, and it just kind of like talks about some of his early drafts, annotation, like what was going on in his mind, writing some of his stuff. So this is gonna. I think I'm gonna probably like wait a while to read this though. This is probably like after I finish at least like 2 or 3 books by Tolstoy, which is gonna take me a lifetime, but I have it. Um, so that's Tolstoy, and then I got into Henry James. Henry James is not a Russian author, but he's also super famous. He's a classic. Like I said, I had to get through all the classics, and that's why it's published under Penguin Classics. But The Portrait of a Lady is the one that I picked up, and then which one? Yeah, and I picked up The Turn of the Screw. So this one's obviously much shorter, so I'll probably read this one first. So I have 2 of these. I kind of want to read all of Henry James's work though, so we'll see how that plays out eventually. Um, and then back to the Russians, I have one book by Ivan Turgenev. Turgenev. I gotta learn how to pronounce these names. But Fathers and Sons, and this is published by Oxford, so that's how you know it's really prestigious. um, but yeah, basically, uh, it's gonna be an interesting deep dive into Russia and intellectual Russia, and kind of like what was going on in that time frame or whatever. So, like I said, popular guy. I gotta read it. Um, let's see here, and then I have Barchester Towers. Let's see, let's see. And this is by Anthony Trollope, I guess. So I don't think this book is Russian, but it does have a little bit of mentions of Russia in there. So there you go. I also picked this one up at the book sale. So I'm kind of interested to see how this one goes. I'm not, like I said, I usually go into things blind, so I don't really research one. I think this one is kind of more of like Spain, France, Italy, kind of all over there. So I'm fascinated. We're gonna put her over here to the side, and then we have this one, which is I've never heard of this book or this author, Doctor Zhivago by Boris Pasternak. So it's basically a novel, and yeah, it takes place during the Russian Revolution. There you go. Like we're just you've met me at a very Russian time in my life. So let's see here. Yeah, this one's kind of a classic Russian literature novel, probably in Eastern Europe and Russia, but just not in the U.S. Because I'm not familiar with this name or the book title. So I'm actually really intrigued. Obviously, super thick. That's also a tendency of the Russians to write really, really, really long novels, and not that I'm complaining. Um, so like I said, going in pretty blind. I'll come back to you and tell you how that plays out. Um, so yeah. Oh my gosh. This is my super huge update basically with all of the books that I have. Yeah, I think I'm gonna probably make like another update video about a lot of these that I've read. I've also been reading a lot of stuff for philosophy and stuff for school and stuff outside of school. I guess you could say just different philosophical texts that are my love and joys. I think I'd have to make another video also. I just need to make a bunch of videos. But I think I'm gonna have to make specifically another video to talk about my philosophy reading because that's a whole different beast. It's just not the same. Reading the way that I read philosophy is 110% different than the way I read literature, especially classic literature. Both require a little bit of squinting, but they are not the same. remotely. But before I go, I do actually want to talk about the New York Review. And basically, it is these chunky magazines. I got one of their subscriptions on sale to get like, what do I have? Four? Yeah, like four magazines. They're not magazines, they're kind of like newspapers, but magazines. And they are huge. Like, this is over this is big. But they're super fun to like read. I feel like I'm getting my newspaper. See, they're like these super long articles. They're printed in color, all that jazz. But what's really fascinating about them is that they don't just talk about books, they talk about current events too, which I really like. There's Misky on the back. Um, but yeah, they kind of feature politics, they talk about books, they talk about several different things. It's not as kind of as shallow as like a typical magazine, I guess, but it's definitely different from like the New York Times because this is the New York Review of Books, so it's like a subtitle down there. But yeah, I have a few, and I'm obsessed with the covers. I love the covers. They always choose really good ones. Um, I think this one is probably my favorite. I just love the painting on this one. Yeah, I don't know. It's just it's just bang. Something about them is fascinating. I actually haven't finished them because I read literally everything, so it takes me ages to read them. But there's that. Oh my gosh, I forgot I also copped this. Hold on. Oh my gosh. Ugh, this heavy thing. This beast of Art Deco graphics. It is massive. I don't think you guys like understand until you pick it up. This thing has got to be at least like a few pounds. It's hefty. Um, but I copped it at that book sale, and it was $15. That's expensive for a book sale, but it was totally worth it because it's vintage and because I'm obsessed with the Art Deco movement. Like, hold on, let me see if I can kind of show you what I'm talking about. Yeah, so basically, they have like a lot of different posters kind of put out here, um, different graphics, and they just kind of show off different designs from the era. Yeah, posters. And I love Art Deco posters. I love the art style. So I had to cop. I had to get it. I had to cop. Beautiful. It's definitely like a coffee table kind of book, but I read my coffee table books. We'll have to also explore my coffee table collection because it is expansive, low key. Um, but yeah, and of course, picked up some vinyls. That's not books, but you know how hard it is to find a vintage Fleetwood Mac vinyl? Really hard. It was really hard. But I found one. Oh, and I found one of the Eagles too. So I'm so stoked about that. So I had to mention it. But yeah, that's my latest update about my book collection, and I will see you all next time.